you, Panitan. So, bureaucratic reforms, economic expansion, Thailand 4.0, land reform, education reform, lots of reforms. And then when you say management of political space, is this a management in a more relaxing way or a more tightening way?
Well, if people at Thammasat are relaxed, we relax. If they are not, if they cannot relax, we concern. If they begin to crash again, so that has to be a conversation. It has to be a conversation between NCPO and people who wanted to engage more, in political activities.
But after the referendum results, do you think the NCPO feels more confident and relaxed about opening up space a little bit?
I think so. I think the list of the rules and regulations in many areas, moving certain cases out from the military court, for example, is a good example. And of course, more and more engagement in terms of how, I think the government is inviting political parties to give comment to a lot of draft. I think that's another area that you need to manage well. And then lastly and most difficult is to engage with the people who are very passionate about their celebrities, leaders, about their political leaders, and not yet able to come to terms with compromise.
For the engagement with the international community, do you think the government is anticipating more activities with the major powers like the US and Japan and so on after the referendum, you think?
I think we have already. I think, if I'm not mistaken, today's invitation from President Obama to our government was issued many months ago. But first, I think the bureaucracy rejected that invitation. But upon the urging of the President Obama, when he met with Prime Minister during the ASEAN summit, he made a decision to go to New York today. I think that's already reflect a willingness of Thai military administration to work with the international community. The refugee area is very sensitive, but we have done much more than expected. So Prime Minister is committed and feel confident enough. And I think President Obama wants Thailand to be one of the Asia models for this. So I think that is already begun. And in many other areas, I think we received interesting recommendations. On the defense side, Deputy Prime Minister Prof have been working with different countries on defense reform quietly. I think, and also handling issues like extremists, new kind of terrorism in many areas. Of course, we need cooperation from many key partners. I think the extremist incidents in many areas are quite worrying for Thailand too. This big open society, these people come to our country. We need to regulate more, and you cannot do that without help from your friends in the region and outside. So quietly, we begin to. The NSC already have a new legislation to open up the NSC office to work more, and there will be more different new appointments, similar to national security advisors, move away from bureaucracy model to engage more with the international community, make the NSC more internationalized. That's I think already in the works.
Thank you very much. Before I go to the last two speakers, I would just say here, since Ajahn Panitan brought up one of my op-eds, and it was unrehearsed, he's putting me on the spot and trying to embarrass me, I know. But the referendum results are a bit stunning, surprising to me. People haven't had a vote in 5 years. I think, the political parties were against it, including Thaksin. This was the first time that Thaksin lost a vote, not an election, but a vote in Thailand, the Thaksin side. So a bit surprising that the results turned out pretty high, convincing, clear, not free and fair, but clean process and clear results. And this takes us into a new kind of territory, I would say that this is a military dictatorship that we haven't seen in the past in Thailand. And it still can, the title of the op-ed is up to the editors. I wouldn't say we have a new balance, but we have a chance for a new balance. Otherwise, we will end up with more imbalance. And that could actually boomerang. But in the past, we've had military dictatorships, which we'll hear from. We have had different regimes, semi-democratic, military authoritarian, and fully democratic, and they've all had problems in different ways. But this particular military authoritarian government is premised, as Ajahn Panitan has talked, they think of themselves as a kind of benevolent and enlightened. They have some reforms in mind that they want to do, even going forward to 20 years, which is astounding. I mean, we haven't had that before. Normally, in Thailand, we've had military dictatorships, and they do a few things. Normally, they would empower some technocrats, do some reforms, eventually get back to elections. This time, generals themselves are in government and trying to enact their own reforms. Some role for the technocrats, but the generals themselves are in charge. This is something that we haven't seen in the past. Also, things could still go astray, I want to say, but so far they have been, corruption has been much lower than in the past military periods we've seen. They have not been violent. So I think that the Thai electorate is probably sick and tired of the protests. Everyone has to be, in the last decade we've had up and down, yellows, reds, and no stability, no peace. So that's one factor. People are also probably sick and tired of the corruption of the politicians that we've seen in the past. And maybe they're seeing a royal transition that the military is uniquely suited to oversee. And they want to have some kind of election, have a say later on. So I think going forward, Panitan has given us a good outlook on what they have in mind. So far they're looking to be benevolent and enlightened. We don't know if they can stay on track. So far they have done not as disastrously as many had anticipated, but if they can keep it up, it will be first of its kind. Now, Ajahn Pandit is new to our faculty, so welcome Ajahn to our panel. Ajahn Pandit is a full-fledged scholar of comparative politics, and he'll share with us his views on the referendum, after referendum, how you can maybe see it, and then what can we expect going forward. Ajahn Pandit.
Good morning, your excellencies and distinguished guests and colleagues here. Thanks for inviting me, and it's a great honor to be here. Now, I'd like to start by reminding you that this year is a 40 years memorial of the October 6, 1976 massacre at Thammasat University. And a couple of days ago, there was a press release, and 7 news agencies go to the press release, but 17 news agencies go to observe the water monitor removal at Suan Lumpini. So this shows a lot that what we had in mind, or what kind of memory in Thailand we had, and what kind of thing we are encountering. First of all, I like to draw you to some idea about what was it in 1976. I think the junta at the time killed people, and still more than 46 people died, and no one realized that what happened actually on that day. And that caused another violence when we think about the 1992 coup d'etat, but 1991 by Rosachor years ago, and then the bloodshed in 1992. And of course, in 2010, we observed the most heavy, massive killing on the ground of Bangkok. And that's still in the obscure, because my colleagues here, Professor Panitan, mentioned the debate on Sunday at Thammasat University. That shows a lot that how can we go for now. It's not that easy, and there are a lot of things to be explored. I'd like to also draw your attention to the idea of the post-referendum. It's outstanding that the turnout of the referendum shows a lot that many Thais support the new constitution. And this is the 20th. Who can guarantee that this is going to be the last one? I bet. It's not that easy as well. But it shows a lot that Thai people are willing to look forward to the civil government rather than a junta one. This is outstanding. But it's a long way to go. It's more than 18 months. It's not that soon as we expected, however. So I would like to show, characterize the legacy of Prayut government. Even though we have seen a lot of progress in terms of human rights and human trafficking and the term of refugee from our colleagues here, but the project of reconciliation is a long way to go. Cases on human rights still in the military courts. Many civil rights activists are still under monitor of the government. Many of them are still fighting for their right to speak to the power. And this is more important because in the terms of reconciliation, we can leave no one behind. Secondly, the state of exception during the rule of the junta will be no accounted, or there is no accountability after the new constitution will be promulgated in the next few months. Sad to say that the application of Prayut state of emergency will be void in terms of legal accountability as well. Third, the future constitution will be almost impossible to be amended. It's the hardest way, the way to amend the new constitution is very hard if you look into detail. And based on my review of 18 Thai constitutions, it would finally lead to a cul-de-sac or a dead end. And that is the only way to break through, you know what I mean. Fourth, the mega project, I'm talking about Prayut's legacy. The mega projects will have no accountability as well. For example, 14-kilometer road along Chao Phraya River or high-speed train projects still unsuspended. And fifth, NCPO draft a 20-year strategic plan which make a future government difficult to encounter new challenges. This is the hardest one when we think about how the government in the future can deal with conflict, how the government will can deal with the new challenges. It's very hard, and if any government in the future try to deviate from the 20-year strategic plan, the case would be brought to constitutional court, and that probably lead to the end of an elected government as well. And we have witnessed the stagnation of political activities by political parties. Even though we have seen the suppression of the government on civil rights activists, but on the one hand, we cannot see much how the political party and the NCPO related in the public. And there are a lot of rumors, and recently confirmed that there would be a chance that the current government will set zero on the political parties, and that lead to more questions about the future of Pheu Thai Party as well as Democrat Party. I think it creates a sense of uncertainty for the future of Thai politics as well. We have seen that the Constitutional Court many times overrule or to dissolve the political parties before, and that is not a good way to fix the problem, I'm afraid. So this is the possible six legacy of Prayut government, and it's also I like to highlight also the idea of Pracharat as a state-led economic plan or activities. I'm not sure this will draw us back to 1950s. We had the state-led government economic plan, and that perhaps create a conflict with the idea of liberal economy in the future. And thinking about the scenario of post-referendum, we will have a new constitution that create a multi-party government. And this probably bring us back to 1980s, where we have a quasi-democratic government or semi-democratic government. It's really hard to imagine the future scenario of Thai politics, but I would like to characterize the future situation of the post-Prayut government as a semi-democratic government with no civil society. This is my idea of future scenario of Thai government.
Thank you. ขอบคุณครับอาจารย์ A couple of points that I would like to tease out. First, the idea that the rules are written now, codified now, such that it would be not so hard for an independent institution like a constitutional court to unseat an elected government, which means, by implication, which means really after the elections. You really have to have some kind of a military-supported, military-aligned elected government in order to survive. Otherwise, it would be very fragile. And also, I like your point, Tan, about how democratic institutions like political parties have been systematically weakened. So when democratic institutions have been weakened and weak, it's unlikely, it's more difficult to nurture a stronger democratic system. Thank you very much, Ajahn. Now we come to Ajahn Suchit. I think Ajahn Pandit, he is looking at the future. I think the future is pretty clear. We will have an elected, semi-democratic coalition government supervised by the military with some politicians alongside, and that will be the medium term of Thailand. Whether that is that bodes good or ill, we will see, but it looks pretty clear the next 15-16 months of all these reforms and the lawmaking that Supachai mentioned, and then election, and after the election we can even see kind of what will happen. This is something that I think maybe provides some stability, some clarity, but I think it will be pivotal. It depends on the performance as well. And along the way, they must not make the missteps of corruption and violence to get there. Ajahn Suchit Bunbongkarn is a former dean of the faculty. He's been a two-time dean. He's a director of ISIS as well. He has been in public service. He has been a constitutional court judge. He was a drafter of the 1997 Constitution, also a drafter of the current Constitution in the first round, which was aborted, didn't pass. In addition, he's held other public roles and even at the universities on the University Council, so he's done many, many things. In the 1980s, we had a civil-military accommodation and compromise. It was called semi-democratic. We had elections in 79, 83, 86, 88. But the Prime Minister was not an elected politician. General Pandit Chulalongkorn at that time started out as a military army chief of commander-in-chief. And for those 8 years, we had 5 governments. And it was seen as a stable, semi-democratic regime with some military prerogatives and some elected politicians. So Ajahn, we, going back to that period, I mean, Thailand is like a series of deja vu. We have 2016 referendum, like 2007, and now we're even looking to go back to the 1980s, possibly with a kind of a civil military arrangement through elections. Ajahn, your time.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn Pitinan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, I'm happy to be here again in this building. Very few would know that this is the first building. You are sitting in the first room of the universities. It was built 100 years ago, but still look very in good shape. So don't worry about collapsing or not. The people in the old days were very concerned about the safety. So this is quite interesting to see that this oldest building continue to function very well. The university will be celebrating 100 years anniversary next year. So this is the first building that it was elected, constructed. Well, once you mentioned about, Ajahn Thitinan mentioned about General Prem period, 1980s. So I was quite lucky to serve him as an advisor. We had a group of advisors attached to him, and then we were very proud that we were able to see in the past that the 8 years of his regime has been very outstanding in terms of achievement, in terms of reconstructing the economy, so on and so forth, and in terms of fighting against corruption. So when the referendum was passed, I was asked by a number of news media, how about Prem model? Do you think that Prayut could, we start with the P again, P Prayut or P Prem would be able to form some sort of model like the so-called Prem model. So I don't want to go back into detail on that, but I would say that we don't have to follow the Prem model. But it seemed to me that in the near future, our politics continue to be quite uncertain. So you cannot say it's a Prem model will be put into effect, or Prayut models or some other people's model will be put into effect. It's not very easy for anybody to identify or to expect. So I would say that once the referendum has been passed, a number of uncertainties occur. First of all, people talking about, asking themselves about who will be the next prime minister. This is the thing that has been asked for so many times, And then after that, which party will win in the next election? Because we know that the election would be held either at the end of next year or early in the 2018. But definitely we'll have a party to run in the election, and who will win. Whether they get enough seats to form a government or not. And how about the military? Will they be in power? How about the role of the NCPO? These are the questions that have been asked, And the most important questions apart from this is, the most two important questions is will corruptions be eliminated from our political scenes? And the other most important question is, will the political divisiveness will no longer exist after the next election? Whether reconciliation works, whether anti-corruption laws and operations and mechanisms that had been reformed works, whether bureaucracies reform work, whether criminal justice system work, the police, the attorney generals, so on and so forth, works in order to safeguard the freedom of the people and the rule of law. So these kind of things, you see, seem to be in question because the people had high hope that the coup, which occurred 3 years ago, would be able to do something good. And they are trying hard. And because of the fact that they are trying hard, the people had a high hope. And once people had a high hope, we know quite well that it's not very easy to get it done. Then the people will get frustrated again. So this is some sort of vicious circle for the Thai politics. Well, anyhow, in order to summarize what I would be thinking in the next, what I would be believing what would happen in the next few years from now, you see, I try to make some uncertainties certain. So the first question is, you see, who would be the next Prime Minister? I would say, but don't believe me. The next Prime Minister is very likely to be General Chanrochanakit. But he will not run in the election, nor will he set up a political parties. So this is my belief. That's why people always think it's a Prem model. Again, it's a Prem model, right? But I don't think it's the same circumstances. In the 1980s, you see, we had quite a different political environment that we are having now. So I don't try to follow Prem model. So Kun Prayut might not be able to follow Prem model, but he might be elected as a Prime Minister for 3 or 4 reasons. Okay. First of all, his chance of maintaining political role can be explained by the fact that, not by the fact, can be explained that the Thai party system continue to be fragile. No parties will get a majority seat in the lower house in the next election. For instance, look at the 2 or 3 parties. I don't know what would be the ingredient or the content of the new election law or the new political parties laws, but let's assume that there will be 2 or 3 major parties running in the elections. First of all, the Pheu Thai party and the Democrats party and other smaller parties like Chanrochanakit and so on and so forth, or Supachai Thai, or even the new party set up by my friend Kun Paibun Yititawan. I forget his how he named his party, you see. Okay, or might be smaller parties, but definitely, see, for the Democrats party, it's becoming weakened, not because of the law itself, not because of the military coup d'etat, so on and so forth, but there is already split within the Democrats party, and the faction between Kun Suchit and Kun Abhisit had been existing for years before the coup. There was a rumor that Kun Suchit might want to defect to the other parties, so on and so forth. Okay, that's right. I don't want to go to detail on that. But because of Kun Suchit had been setting up his Kokokosor, and he was able to draw a number of top newcomers of the Democrats to join him. This is the point, that the Democrat will be weakened, and it will be doubtful if the party will get a solid support of the South, because Kun Suchit, definitely, that's what I heard, he will not return to the Democrat Party. Somebody mentioned about the mayor of Bangkok, or governor of Bangkok, Kun Sukumpan, but Kun Sukumpan is now in trouble, so he might be stay away from national politics or why. So the leaders of the Democrat Party continue to be Kun Abhisit. This is very difficult to get support from the South, let alone the North and the Northeast. and I'm not very sure about Bangkok. You see, this is the point that, okay. And how about Pheu Thai? Pheu Thai, I would say that they are facing leadership crisis. The real leader is in Dubai, but he's always having trouble enough there, coming back, and all his difficulty would involve with his assets and so on and so forth. And Kun Yingluck might not be able to run in the next elections because of severe attack on the mismanagement of the rice spreading schemes, and there might be a possibility that the assets of the two would be confiscated through the Article 44 under the interim constitution. So what I heard from Visanu now, but I'm not very sure. Continue to be uncertain. But of course, what is true that the Pheu Thai has been weakened. Although they will get enough, quite a number of seats from the north and the northeast, the influence of the Pheu Thai party and the Red Shirt continue to be very strong in the northeast. Less strong in the north, except Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. See, but in the northeast, considering the fact that the people there continue to vote against the referendum in terms of popularity, you see. So it might be true that a number of candidates under Pheu Thai will be elected, but not enough to form a party. So this is the thing that will be one of the factors that would give a chance to Kun Prayut, because no parties in the lower house cannot produce a very good leadership in order to get enough vote from the lower house as they have from the Senate, which is of course would be dominated by the people appointed by the NCPO. So the second factor is the vote from the Senate. And it seems to me at the moment the NCPO can come to agreement among themselves. You see, the big two Ps are now, the big two Ps are now agree that Kun Prayut should be continue to run the country after the next election. So this would be another factors. But the point is, you see, whether it functions well or not, I would say that the problems of being a non-elected prime minister like Kun Prayut, one other thing is, you see, it might be good that he would be aloof from political juggling or political conflict, you see. But the problems of his would be the same as in the case of General Brain, in order to get the support from the lower house in a number of bills, because the bills must pass the lower house first, then before coming up to the Senate. So in this case, he need to have a kind of solid support for some major bills. Otherwise, it would happen like General Brain, that he had to dissolve the house in order to get a new election again and again. So this is the thing that would be one of the problems, that he has to get some sort of support from a number of parties in the lower house. What I heard is some party are now working closely with the staff of these two generals, the big Ps, in order to get seat in the cabinet after the next election. What I heard that the Democrats also would like to join the new government under the leadership of General Prayut as well. So this is the thing that it's now working behind the scene. And you know, Thai politics always work behind the scene. Transparency in the front of public eyes is a propaganda. But the real thing continue to be this day is the working behind the scene. And you don't know until it come out in the forefront. Okay, that's it. So this is the nature of our politics. The second question that I would like to raise here, will corruption be less in the next government? Because one of the things that people believe that the new constitutions, the new organic law, the new election system, and so on and so forth, will reproduce a new regime with corruption-free or less corruption. Because we believe that otherwise they don't need to launch a coup in the first place. Of course, it's not very easy to predict. So what I would like to look that will there be a number of new faces in Thai politics or not? If there are a good number of new faces in the parliament, the corruption practices would be less, because these people will be more principled and less corrupt in their behavior. But don't forget that the old faces continue to be in power in a number of constituencies, and they know how to manipulate their survival under the new system. So it's not very easy for them to change their behavior. It's not very easy for them to follow the new rule of law, but they would be able to get away from it. So I would like to see in real politics, if they still control the parliament, it might not be easy for us to see a less corrupt government. And these people know how to get away with the laws against the government. You see, the newcomer would be in trouble because they don't have enough experience how to get away with it. But the old pro, believe me, these people will not be able to get trapped with all these new control mechanism. Okay, but I would say that in the first 5 years during the transitional period, corruption would be less, of course, because the government need to perform well, need to present to the people that they are trying to do good for the country. So, but the other questions, the last question that I would like to point out, will political polarizations no longer exist? No, it's still there. It's still there. Look at the result of the referendum. The country continues to divide. The Northeast is stronghold of those who are against the military. The Northeast still continue to be a stronghold of Kun Thaksin and his colleagues and all that. You see, although there are a number of people in the Northeast defected and vote for Kun Prayut and vote for referendum, but still, you never can tell if the NCPO allow full and open discussions on the constitution's draft, you see, were widely open. The vote against the constitution's draft, the draft of the constitution in the Northeast would be much more. So that's because there's no public debate on this, on the pro and con of the constitution, so on and so forth. So this is one of the things that I would like to remind you. But and at the same time, the so-called red shirts would join hands with the old pro-liberal democracy among intellectuals, among some mass media, among teachers, professors, so on and so forth, and even among some business people, to organize some sort of de facto opposition outside the parliament. They know quite well that inside the parliament, you see, then there would not be enough vote to overthrow the government. But the outside activities will continue. The public debate, the public forum, and so on and so forth. Once up the next election, the government need to allow this kind to happen more, unlike we are having here. So, but the point is, you see, during the first 5 years of transitional period, we have an interim clauses in the constitution, giving more power to the so-called security agency to take care of the political stability, to take care of the any uprisings that would endanger national security. So I think that in the first 5 years, although the divisiveness is still there, it would be less politically violent, political stability would be maintained, at least for a time being, in the first 3 or 4 years, you see, that would be good for the country to run forward. So if the next government try to be more accountable, try to be more less corrupt, try to be progressive enough in order to project the so-called mechanism, policy in accordance with the so-called national strategies, in accordance with the national reform program, and if we can start it, then our democracy would be in a bright future. Of course, we need to tolerate to be under the so-called semi-democracy like we had during general break. But we don't want to end up like that. Once General Prem stepped down, then and the country became a full-fledged democracy, and then we had another coup again, right? So in 1988, Suchit became to power. In 1991, we were in trouble with the government, and then another coup occurred. So we don't want to end up in that period. So the question is, it's not very easy for us to see that in the future, will the military will be move themselves back to the barracks. Things happen to the performance of the next government. Believe me, who will be the leader the next? If the next government function well, our democracy consolidation would be in effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suchit, for your insights and for the reminder that in Thai politics, remember, what you see is often not what you get. And what is in front of you, there's more to it behind the scenes. I think the key point from Ajahn Suchit, which is quite a bold one, is that General Prayut Chan-o-cha is likely to be the post-election Prime Minister. Now, this is not straightforward, but it looks that way. I mean, the rules are written as such that the military's party will be the Senate. The appointed Senate will be the military's party, and a lot of these smaller, medium-sized parties will gravitate towards the Senate and the military because they want to be in government as well. Before I open up the floor, we have some time. I want to just, if I may ask, Supachai, can you share with us the constitutional mechanisms through which would be required for General Prayut not to run in the election, but to end up as Prime Minister? What would have to happen?
I will not talk about General Prayut, but I will talk about Ajahn Thitinan. If we want to make Ajahn Thitinan a Prime Minister, can we do it according to this constitution? Actually, in the constitution, the political party must name the PM list and submit it to the election commission before
the day that we will have the national election. So if the name have been proposed by the political party, and that political party get the vote, I mean the MP more than 5%. That party that proposed the name of Ajahn Thitinan have a chance to propose Ajahn Thitinan to be a prime minister. But you need half of the vote, which means that you have to do whatever you have to do to get the vote to be named prime minister. So if you do not get the vote and Ajahn Panitan come in to the scene, if all those listed are not chosen by the member of the parliament, then I have to check. Actually, I always take the constitution with me to read it. Then the House of Representatives have to call to propose for a forum of the upper house and the lower house, and then it needs 2/3 of the vote to get permission to name those not in the list. And if someone wants to name Ajahn Panitan, which is not on the list, if 2/3 of the 750, it is 501, agree that we shall not, we shall choose someone outside of the party list, or even in the party list, we have to vote at less than 5%. Then with that 2/3 permission, the name then will be named. This I don't know that what will happen at this point, because it have to be decided by the Constitutional Court. If the Constitutional Court have a verdict that the upper house can name, then it means that both the lower house and upper house can name this the person outside of the list, and then it have to go back, and this I cannot tell you either, because it depends on the Constitutional Court that the vote for the prime minister will be done at the full parliament or only for the House of the Representative. This is not finalized yet. We have to wait for the Constitutional Court.
Ajahn, if I may point out, this is kind of a hybrid of our various mechanisms from the past. Used to be two main ways. Either you can be anyone, doesn't have to be elected, can be prime minister. But that was considered undemocratic. Then it became the requirement that you had to be elected MP. So this one is a kind of a in-between hybrid. And there are two numbers that are crucial, 376 and 501. So in the normal process, you get the 376 is a simple majority of the bicameral legislature. If you have a party list MP of any party in parliament in the lower house, if that person can acquire 376 combined, then becomes prime minister. Bear in mind that of the 376, 250 will be the senators, and they will be appointed by the military. So not easy to get 376 bicameral number when you have 250 appointed senators. And the next number is 501, which means that if you have an outsider candidate, then you need 2/3. 2/3 to 501, 250 Senate. So you still need 250 from the politicians. So it's still not easy either way, but it looks to be going in that direction because General Prayut, the distance between him and Panitan, me, and all the other leaders, potential leaders, is vast. He is seen as very popular, and the next candidate is way behind. But for him to get there, it involves some complicated numbers and processes.